Yes, I'm on the floor. Let's move on from that. How much can your life change in 100 days? Last year, I asked myself that simple question and then I tried to answer it. What would happen if you embodied the person you actually want to be for 100 days straight? For 100 days, I decided to follow a couple of simple rules. Building a routine that brings me closer to my goals so I have consistent actions, making me evolve. Two, daily journaling so I stay grounded and connected to my vision. And three, making a conscious decision every single week to step outside of my comfort zone. And by 100 days, I meant I had to keep going for 100 days. It didn't mean a streak. It didn't mean that when I had an off day, I would have to start over and go for another 100. It meant I had to keep going no matter what happened for 100 days straight. If I had an off day, I still had 99 more days. If I had 10 off days, I still had 90 more days. What mattered was that I had to recenter, refocus, and just keep going for the full time period. More than anything, what I didn't want was to feel like I was faking it till I make it, or like I was simply repeating affirmations I didn't actually believe in and trying to trick my brain into doing something. I really wanted to make conscious choices that aligned with what my version of my ideal self would do and see if I really try to make the best choice depending on the situation, what would that look like for 100 days? Why did I start? When you're doing so many things that by the end of the day, you're honestly wondering what you actually did. Like you're just on autopilot. That's kind of what everything was for me in 2023 and a large part of 2024. It just felt like I didn't have any control of my time. Like everything I did was dictated by whatever came up instead of having conscious choices for how I wanted to spend my time. I felt like I had absolutely no control over how my days went, my availability, my schedule. Everything felt dictated by whatever thing just popped up pretty much. Like time was just passing by and without me seeing any significant progress towards like what I actually wanted to do. It really just felt like I had no control over how I actually spent my most of my days anyway. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew how to plan for it. But by the time I actually wanted to get to it, either I just couldn't make the time for it, or because of other obligations, I just couldn't get to it. I just didn't feel like I was in control at all of my time, basically. The thing is, it's not like my goals would really slip my mind either. I'm constantly thinking about what I want to do. And even then, I was still constantly thinking about what I wanted to do. It's just that even though it was at the forefront of my mind, it didn't seem to come up in the list of my priorities. So I decided I would just throw out the planning part. I would throw out the whole, well, I have to do this before getting to that, or I have to start here. I threw all of that out and decided I would just jump in and see what happened if for 100 days I just did the thing, not thought of doing the thing, not planned on doing the thing. I just did the thing for 100 days. Why 100 days? Why not 30? Why not 40? Why not 75 or even 90? I'm usually a fan of a perfect beginning of or end, like the beginning of the month when it starts on a Monday. I love that. The just, anything that lines up perfectly. And so I had to give myself the time, like enough time to get rid of that mindset, because whenever something would mess up a streak, I would want to completely start over instead of keep going. So for 100 days, that's enough time to see progress, but that's not so long that you lose focus. But what did it mean for me to act like my best self for 100 days? I had to define that. So I think anybody who's used the internet by now is familiar with the concept of manifestation or anything like that, where any spiritual belief where pretty much your beliefs, your thoughts can affect your reality. Whether you call that your prayers being answered or whether you call it you manifesting your reality, we've had the variation of that discussion for a long time now online. And while I agree with a lot of it, and to some extent, I do believe in, well, various things, my part what I really wanted to stress was the part where, okay, if I believe in this, then how should I act? For instance, if I'm trying to manifest or pray for self-love, for confidence, all of these things, can I be somebody that actually affirms that I am confident, that I have all of this self love, and then also be the same person that doesn't want to buy an outfit until my body looks a certain way? I don't think that would make a lot of sense. This is the part where I thought I don't want to just try and trick my brain or repeat things that I don't believe in. If you're going to be this person that you affirm is beautiful and confident, you're going to wear the outfit that you want right now because you are beautiful and confident. Your actions have to align with that, right? So acting like my best self for 100 days was about removing that, oh, I'll do it when. Was about removing just any of those self-imposed blockages and just acting in the moment the way it is actually supposed to be for this ideal self. I really got into the details as well, like what would I wear at home versus outside? What would my hair be like? How would I feel generally about my personal style? Those questions seem like they're just fun, but they're actually important because they force you to confront what is actually standing between you right now and that version of you that you want to embody. What is actually stopping you from wearing the outfits you want to wear? What is actually stopping you from doing your hair, experimenting with your style the way you want to experiment with it? Thinking of money, I thought of where I would spend it. I thought of my general feelings towards money. I think that regardless of what your financial situation is, a lot of people have, especially if you're from an immigrant background, you will tend to have a lot of anxiety surrounding money. Money will not be something that you're very, very comfortable with or that you feel like you can hold on to, or rather could be something that you hold on to a lot too much, right? So just thinking about those things, how money makes me feel, how people around me make me feel, it was really important in trying to determine what was feeling off, what was I trying to correct, and if something was feeling off, what exactly was the reason for that thing being off. And again, the recurring theme for things feeling off, the recurring theme for that was bad time management, not being intentional with my time, and not actively addressing areas of my life that I wasn't happy with. For example, I wasn't really happy with my fitness and my nutrition. Food never really left me feeling full, especially due to PCOS and insulin resistance. I was really a person that prioritized, or used to prioritize anyway, high intensity workouts, even though they didn't make sense with PCOS, once again. And it left my body feeling stressed. I didn't feel more energized. My posture was really bad, which was affecting just my overall breathing and causing me lower back pain. And instead of telling myself, okay, I'll sign myself up for a bunch of fitness classes or an impossibly far away gym that I just know I will not actually get to, I thought, okay, my ideal self would have a routine that actually makes sense, where fitness and eating well would fit in naturally, where it wouldn't feel like an uphill battle. So I made myself a new schedule that actually made sense with what it is that I wanted to achieve, meaning having an easier time prioritizing my health in general. So the gym would have to be at a time where I wouldn't be thinking about work, where I wouldn't be too exhausted to go to the gym, where again, I'm a person that tries to avoid being in a situation where there's a lot of resistance being created in the first place. I don't think that discipline is you having to be like, okay, well, I'm going to go against this. I don't feel like it, but I'm going to go regardless every single day. I think a lot of you staying disciplined should also be you not putting yourself or trying your best to avoid situations where you really have to have your resistance tested in the first place. So I managed to find some gym slots that worked perfectly on days where I knew I had less work, where I knew I wouldn't have my mind completely just distracted by other things. And I go in the morning where my energy is higher. I also ended up getting a personal trainer at my gym that was knowledgeable about PCOS and women's health in general. So I had extra accountability. I had body doubling going on. It just made sense. It solved my issues where instead of me having to motivate myself to go to the gym at random times, when finding the time to go to the gym, suddenly I had a structure. Suddenly I had another person involved for accountability. And suddenly I had some form of a program because my personal trainer knew my goals. The biggest thing was I made my health a non negotiable. Instead of it being down the list of priorities, meaning, okay, work is here, paying the bills, all these things, and then, I made my health a non negotiable. The question of whether I should go to the gym or not didn't really come up as much because it was a non negotiable. Yes, looking at the non-scale victories, for instance, having more energy, sleeping better, all of those things, why wouldn't I want that for myself? So I knew that, yes, I would go to the gym because it makes me feel better, because it is something that I have to do to maintain my health, to maintain my energy levels, to be my best self, to be able to show up as my best self. I should keep taking care of myself. So again, it became a non-negotiable. Just like I would show up to work, just like I would show up and do what I need to do, the gym, my health, eating well, prioritizing the fact that I should eat consistently, all of those things, that became a non-negotiable as well. It was just as important as everything else. It is as important as everything else. I highlight non-scale victories because I made it a point not to focus on aesthetics. Whenever I focused on aesthetics in the past, I gave up in the middle. I gave up after the results started coming and I was happy, but then when it slowed down, I gave up because I was focused on aesthetics. When I really focused on getting stronger, when I focused on actually just looking at things that made sense, like this exercise became easier. Now I'm lifting heavier, or simply I'm sleeping better. All of those things. I don't have lower back pain anymore. When focusing on this as opposed to aesthetics, when focusing on those non-scale victories, on seeing that now when I ate, I felt full and I felt energized, it became so much easier to actually stick to it because it was based on how great I felt. It was part of maintaining this better version of myself as opposed to trying to look like someone else. Dieting a lot easier because I'm not really dieting. I'm not restricting anything. I'm not removing anything from my diet. If anything, I added to my diet. I learned how to build a more balanced meal. So then I'm adding leafy greens. I'm adding healthy fats. I'm adding things to my plate as opposed to trying to take some away. I'm balancing the portions. All of those things just make more sense than to go like, oh yeah, I'm cutting out carbs. Set up for failure, knowing myself. I'm not cutting out carbs. I'm not doing it. I'm never going to do it. I don't care how many people tell me about keto, carnivore, I'm not doing it. I'm just not going to do it. No. And it's been working great for me to just think of things in a balanced fashion. Again, trying to avoid the all or nothing mindset. Making smart substitutions help too. Instead of regular tortillas, maybe getting protein tortillas, getting protein milk over regular milk, just making substitutions where really the taste didn't really change, but it just fit in better with my goals. It kept me fuller longer. Just healthy, smart substitutions as opposed to restriction, or any drastic changes that is just not realistic or sustainable in a long-term fashion. I also had to be stricter with myself in terms of work-life balance. I knew I didn't like my work-life balance as it was before. And a lot of that was because working for yourself means that you don't really have to clock out. Like, ever. So I had to be strict with myself because nobody else would be. I had to set some hours. Okay, these are my work hours. And if things don't get done during that time period, they're just not going to get done. I had to say no to what I couldn't do. Any really last minute impossible requests that I would have accommodated before and sacrificed my time and energy and my health for, I was saying no to now. It didn't matter if I felt like I was passing up this or that. No. If it was really messing up with all of my other priorities, then it was just an unrealistic request and I couldn't fulfill it. A lot of me having a better work-life balance had to do with just me saying no a lot more often, enforcing boundaries. And first of all, my business is now better for it because I actually have clients that align with my work style. And secondly, my health, everything else now does not have to be at the mercy of my work schedule. And that is the privilege that comes with me having built a business that is now that is helping me sustain my lifestyle, right? It's not always possible for people to say no. A couple years ago, I wouldn't have been able to pass up any opportunity that came my way because I had to take every single one for me to be able to get to where I am right now. And I did the work. I am now here, and I had to break out of that mindset from years ago where every opportunity was a yes. I had to say yes to everything. Now I had to realize I'm at a point where I can and should say no to certain things. So I do. All in all, my thing was it was to not set drastic life changes and rules to live by. It was to create a system that was actually sustainable for me in the long term and that just made me naturally move towards my goals without having to fight myself every step of the way. In terms of the routine I followed, I've always been the type of person that needs a structure to fall back on and repetition to fall back on when things start getting overwhelming and I start getting distracted. I've always just functioned best with things that can remind me of what I actually need to do. Dry erase boards, sticky notes, anything and everything that can bring me back to center, pretty much. So for me to stick to the new system, I had to establish a routine to reference. When I would stop being mindful of where my time was going, I could go back to it, look at it and be like, okay, so this is what I'm supposed to be prioritizing, or this is the things, like these are the things that I'm actually supposed to look at and do in a week or within a week. So when creating that system, that routine, I first started with the things I know for a fact happen on a weekly basis. Work on weekdays, gym sessions, fitness classes, then on a daily basis, skincare routine, morning and night. Then, of course, making time to make food prep, all of these things. And that all seems pretty logical, things you don't really have to think about necessarily, but that's pretty much where you start adding the things that you do have to think about a little bit more. So that would be time to stretch. For instance, having a dedicated time to stretch. Game changer, by the way. Having a hard cutoff for work hours. An actual time slot to really wind down before sleep, which would usually be reading for me. Having a cup of tea, those types of things. Just the little extra that you sprinkle in on top of your basic stuff. On a weekly basis, I have my staple things. So like hit the gym 3 to 4 times a week. Twice with my personal trainer usually, and then once or twice by myself or at a fitness class, going on walks pretty much on a daily basis now that it's actually nicer, and it was nicer when I started doing this. And I regularly fit in meetings within this routine, hang out with my friends, all of the social things I still manage to fit in. The reason that I could actually stick to routine and that I've always been able to stick to routines is that I always have a plan for lower energy days. I always have a plan for lower energy days. If on a day where I'm at 100%, I know that I can get through I don't know how many steps skincare routine, that's okay, that's great. But I also know that on a day where I'm not feeling 100%, I have an alternative skincare routine that I can still get done that will not take me as long and that will just check off the same goal. So my thing is always, if the routine relies on you feeling 100% at all times, you're setting yourself up for failure. And so I had my alternatives on the weeks where I didn't have any energy, which is common with PCOS. Well, my breakfast would just be leftovers. Would It would just mean that, again, I would just do a walk maybe instead of going to the gym. I still got movement in, but it just wasn't as high intensity as a day where I would be at 100% of my energy. What I had not planned for were the sacrifices that had to come with making all of these life changes, right? Um, Around the fourth week, I still felt like I wasn't as present as I wanted to. And that's because I was trying to keep doing everything I was doing before while making all of those new life changes. So it just didn't really make sense. I wanted to keep going out the way I did before, but still also be in the gym in the morning. It just didn't make sense. I had to lessen the time I spent doing certain things so I could spend more time doing other things that were actually at the top of my priority list. And it made complete sense that if you're trying to build a new life, you have to let go of the old one, pretty much. It makes sense, but until you're in it, it doesn't really click because it's all of the little things, like the ability for me to just be doom scrolling for hours on end. Well, that was not really a thing anymore because I had a lot more stuff to do. Where I always had more stuff to do, but I wanted to do them without feeling overwhelmed or without feeling like I had to be up until an insane time and then be tired the next day. On a mental note, being able to bridge that gap between planning for something and actually just doing it did absolute wonders in every single area, every single aspect of my life. It changed absolutely everything. The ability to just be like, well, I want to do something and just do it, just actually get to it, just do it instead of spending forever just planning around it, thinking about it, all of those things. It changed absolutely everything. It made me just make better choices. It made me actually just go for certain things, go for opportunities where I would have hesitated, taken way too long before. So at the beginning of the 100 days, for the first couple of like maybe weeks, I was still over planning. I was still thinking a lot. But by the end of it, I was just doing, I was just executing. And that made a huge difference in every single thing. I was just able to actually even just start new things, get out of my comfort zone, and not think about how, why, what if, whatever. No, I was just doing it. And that was it's honestly the best gift for me that I've given myself through this whole thing. This now new capacity to just do, as opposed to think of, plan, all of those things. Just, it doesn't mean just jump into anything, but knowing that I'm not going to be stuck at the planning stage, knowing that I'm not going to make excuses for why I can't do something, that was the biggest game changer of this whole thing. There are so many little things, nuances that I could go on and on and on about. But, you know, if you have any questions really about that, or you're trying to start your own thing, I would love to hear about it. You can comment, send me, nope, my DMs are closed. You can comment, actually reply to one of my tweets if you're on Twitter. Yeah, and I'd love to discuss that. Actually, I think it's great. I think it's something that if you manage to build community around just creating this better life for yourself, a community of people that just get it, that, you know, just doing better things for yourself doesn't have to be boring, doesn't have to be strict, doesn't have to be restrictive. Yes, that is honestly life changing. And that's it.